Say welcome to Abstrato, and we're super grateful that you're going to be taking part with the platform as an ambassador. So we'll see a lot more of you. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of your ideas and looking at your articles. So, firstly, thank you for taking part in this. I'm not sure quite where it's going to end up. Hopefully, it'll be somewhere positive.
Probably. That's the idea, right?
Fingers crossed. Yeah. The idea is
Absolutely.
good. We've just got to see where it's going. But I think so for this session, for this video, we've got 20, 30 minutes, and it will be great to delve down into a bit more detail about you, your background, how you got into ITAM, where you think things are going. You and I are very aligned on the whole, because cloud has kind of inverted our model of SAM and ITAM, at least in terms of how we pay for software. You and I are both very adamant that actually the small to medium organizations are now going to need much more help when it comes to SAM and ITAM, but the model of delivery is going to have to be completely different. So it'd be good to talk a little bit about that because I know you're very passionate about that. But yeah, why don't we take it right back and listen to Gerben talk about, how long have you been in ITAM? How did you get into it? Was it an accident, or did you kind of go to college and go, right, I'm going to go and do ITAM or SAM? Yeah, let's hear
Yeah,
your
exactly.
backstory.
And I saw your prep mail this morning, so also maybe a little bit about who am I,
Yeah,
where am I living, these kind of things, and then
yeah, absolutely.
I think the guys can decide to cut it out or to leave it in. That's up to their
I'm
discretion,
sure they'll
right?
leave it in. I'm sure they'll leave it in, Gerben.
Right. Well, let's start with that one. Then people know a little bit who I am. So I'm Gerben Vermeulen, working from the Netherlands, living in Gouda, famous for its cheese and stroopwafels,
Huh?
right in the middle of the country. So that's very convenient.
Did you say cheese and waffles?
Yeah, stroopwafels.
Ah, nice. Together
Yeah.
or separately?
No,
Separately, right?
luckily it's separate. Yeah.
Ah, right. Okay. I mean, it could be nice together at the same time, but
Maybe
okay,
it's the
cheese and
invention of the
waffles.
century. Yeah.
That's a cool thing to be linked to. Sorry, go on.
Exactly. So living there with my wife, four kids, and a bonus daughter. So it's a full house,
That
but well,
is.
I like
Yeah,
to have
yeah.
some people surrounding me, so that's always good.
That's cool.
Um, yeah, well, what did I do? I started as a programmer, so I did a lot of C# programming for up to 9 years with some architectural gigs in between. But then I thought, well, I love technology, but I also love to make an impact.
Mm,
And then moved over to vendor management. So sitting right in between the customer and the publisher or the vendor to make sure that, well, sometimes the customer needs to step up and be a better customer. Sometimes the vendor or the
yeah.
publisher needs to step up. So I like the dynamics of these kind of things. And then accidentally, I think as everyone enters the item space
Yeah.
accidentally, my manager said, "Well, pick up this licensing question. You'll love it." And back at that time, I went home and said to my wife, "Oh, please shoot me. I got this boring topic of license management in my lap, and I can't get rid of it."
I know that
But well,
feeling.
look at me now. I think we're 15 years later now, and I'm still doing it. And the fun thing about this is, again, it's sitting right between the business and technology.
Yeah.
So buying a license is just a transaction, but making sure that the license fits to the model that your business understands and that the core business of the company is benefiting. That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
also, well, we need to talk various languages, and not only Dutch and English, but also you need to be able to talk to a systems manager, to a functional management guy, but also to the CIO, and make sure that they understand what you're trying to say. And I
Yeah.
really love that dynamic as well.
Yeah. You sit right in the middle. Doing ITAM or SAM, you sit right. You need to be able to talk to so many different profiles, don't you? For sure.
Exactly. And the weird thing, though, is that item is still an island. So building the
Yeah.
bridges off the island to share your data, to share your knowledge, but also to gather new intel is really crucial. So being vocal as an item expert is really important to me as well, so that people know that we exist, know that we can bring add some value. And not only are the guys who are like calculating once a year if you're still compliant and then saying no, and there's a big bill coming.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I think you would have probably, I mean, just thinking out loud, if you'd have come from a programming background, you'd have had a head start on a lot of people because your brain would have already been working and in gear from a very technical perspective. So if you then
exactly.
have the social smarts to talk with different profiles, that's a really good combination you'd have had.
Absolutely, and the way of problem solving, it all
Yeah,
falls back to how we solved problems 2 decades ago in code, thinking about how to do things and making more things abstract to solve problems, these kind of things. So
yeah,
that still works fine. So that's really really nice. And in all this time, I never worked for resellers or publishers, so I've always seen the customer side. So
yeah,
also can relate to how it feels when there's an audit settlement letter falling or there's a annual renewal and which
yeah.
kind of pressure comes with it.
You get the pain. I think it's important to feel that pain because it is painful as an end user on many different levels. You know, whether it's just job security and feeling like you should have done better, when really most organisations aren't resourced properly. So it's not
Yeah.
the fault of an IT manager because their licensing is down, not fundamentally anyway. Okay, all right. And so if you kind of fast track to where you're at now, where are you? Where are you now in terms of, so I know you work for yourself as a freelancer and a contractor. What kind of work have you been involved in the last few years, and what sort of changes have you seen?
Yeah, indeed. So indeed, working as a contractor, I had some staff, but over the past few years, I don't have them anymore. And I like to work with other contractors just because we can. It's easier to do that, less risk, but a lot of knowledge is in the market. So I love to work with other contractors. Um, and normally working with the bigger multinationals founded in the Netherlands normally, but presence around the globe and helping them to understand or to counter audits, to implement a process, to mature the processes, or when they have a tool or want to select a tool, make sure that it fits their organization and the reports are checking out.
Yeah,
And always, love to do a lot of things at the same time. So don't give me a 9 to 5 job, 40 hours a week. I'm already bored if I think about that. So I'm trying to do one big customer for three, max 4 days a week, and then for the rest have a set of customers that I can help with various tasks. That keeps me
mixing it
awake,
out.
keeps me
Yeah,
sharp, and we can interchange, right? So every customer learns from the other customer without mentioning names, of course, but
yeah,
the
yeah,
lessons
yeah,
I
yeah.
learn on the left side, we just bring it in on the right side. And I think everyone profits from that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a massive fan of that, and it's interesting. So I like multitasking, but actually I'm a little bit dangerous if I multitask because I don't think I'm very good at it. But quite a few of the guys, quite a few of the other ambassadors on the Abstrato platform, and some of the general freelancers, they they mirror the same sentiment that you've just said about I like to have two or three, maybe four or five projects on the go. You know, if it's four or five projects, they're probably smaller projects and not quite as complex and demanding. But it really is possible to have two or three projects. And I think that's where for me, when I was younger, the joy of going from contract to freelance, I really liked because I didn't enjoy the contracting where I would have a 6 month contract and it was one place. I had to go there every day. It was kind of the same as employment, really, but except your employment was for 6 months and that
Exactly.
that might be up and down. The whole idea of freelancing that you've talked about there, a lot of the other guys are really enjoying that, having three or four projects on the go. Keeps you fresh. I think you
Yes,
used that term,
exactly.
didn't you? Yeah.
Exactly. Keeps you fresh, keeps you on your toes because you need to prove yourself over and over again. And then
Yeah.
if people say, is it not more risky to be a freelancer? I say no, because I do a job interview like 5 times a month. So I'm better at it than someone who's working for 20 years in one
Yeah.
company and then being laid off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's an interesting one actually. As I was having the same conversation, I forget who I was having it with. Sorry, we've done quite a few videos over the past week,
yeah,
but um, I was talking with someone about their work with a large client, and one or two of the internal SAM guys going, "Oh, well, I've been here for 20 years, and I've been saying the same thing to these organizations, to my organization, and it's just because you're a consultant that they're now listening to you." And there is an element of that, but it's also normally what you find is someone that's good at freelancing is good at understanding and doing the technical, but they're also then very good at sitting down with the different profiles right up to the CEO, if need be, or CIO, and saying, this is where you're at, this is where you need to be, this is the delta in the middle, and these are the really important things that you need to do. And I think when you go from project to project, you pick up that skill of being able to tell your client they're in a mess, it's okay, this is what needs to be done. And I think that's I mean, there's quite a few differences of, what freelancing is compared to being, an employee, but that's a massive one, I think. And it's a skill that you need to train your mind, because it's not always easy explaining what's
No.
wrong and what needs to be done and why someone might need to spend money. So yeah, I resonate with that. Why don't we why don't we talk about the ITAM piece and where we think it's going? Because this was the bit that you and I really we were nodding at each other when I was telling you about what we're doing in the Abstrato platform and where we think the market's going, and that we're going to need people such as yourselves in the Netherlands and all around the world to be able to help the small to medium-sized businesses that don't necessarily have the funds for big managed services and don't have the funds for internal resources, but they'll need someone like you, kind of almost like a fractional ITAM manager, where you would say, okay, well, throughout the year, I will work with the client through the Abstrato platform, and they'll probably have 10% of me each month. And during that 10%, I'll look at where they're at, where the potholes are or the icebergs, strategically where they need to go, and then I'll dial them back into, I don't know, let's say it could be a SAP audit. So there'll be someone in Abstrato in the platform that does SAP, or maybe you do it, or there'll be someone else that does IBM. Let's talk about that, because I know that you definitely feel that's where the market's going to go over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I've seen is the bigger companies, that's the companies I built my experience with, and they can afford to have like an internal team to hire some externals for some specifics. But if you look at the smaller companies, and then I think it's like 250 employees plus,
Yeah,
they don't have the budget to have a license manager in on the payroll. They don't have the budget to hire you or hire me or any one of the other ambassadors. But we see that the amount they're spending on cloud and on subscriptions and licenses is exploding really.
yeah,
And they don't have the means of doing that. And if they then say, well, Gerben, here's a bag of money, go do it, then I can do, I'm very smart with processes, with Microsoft, with IBM, but still then I am a generalist. And if they then say, well, I've got a pot of money, it's not as big as the multinationals, but it's still a pot of money.
yeah,
And indeed, I have like 10 hours of Gerben, then 20 hours of this guy or girl, and we can do exactly what we excel in. For us, that's great because I can do just the thing I love. And for the customer, they've got a whole team with players like Messi who are really good at what they do.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that combination of the market being the smaller market, recognizing that they're spending a lot of money and too much money, and at the same time that we can break it apart into the small gigs that are really fitting the profiles. I think that's a golden combination.
yeah, yeah. It is. The thing that really, when we were building the platform out and looking at where we thought the market was going to go, what you've just described there was fundamentally why we set this up. And I actually believe there will be a lot of enterprise organizations that will want to flex their SAM, ITAM, and FinOps services, and they'll probably end up using our platform as well if they don't want to grow their team or they don't want a big managed service. But one thing that really jumped out at us was the importance of having people like you on the platform. So you called yourself a generalist, and I think you're underplaying your skill sets there, because when I think of the term generalist, I kind of think, yeah, someone that kind of knows their stuff. It's very broad, but I also know that you go down very deep in different areas as well. But
Correct.
the benefit of having someone, and we've had, so at the moment we're running our model and service with a few customers. The platform goes live in a few days, literally, and then we'll be piloting them through the platform. But one thing that's come out on quite a few customer or organizational calls is it doesn't matter whether it's a large business, medium, or small. What they want is one individual, like a Gerben, that knows their business and doesn't necessarily do everything, but they've got 15, 20 years of industry experience that they can oversee. So that it doesn't matter if someone comes in to do a few days on SAP or IBM or GCP or AWS or whatever it might be. Gerben's there in the background as that fractional ITAM manager communicating via the platform, and it's a steady, ongoing. There's a level of continuity and trust and comfort in having Gerben oversee it on a 1, 2, 3, 4 year contract. And that's one thing
Right.
that quite a few of our potential customers have said is an absolute must. So I think that's where people like you that have got this really broad understanding will absolutely come into play. That's the bit that really excites me, only because I'm a generalist
Yeah.
as well,
No,
to use that
absolutely,
term.
and I fully echo that because a customer just wants that familiar face that understands them, so they don't
Yeah,
have to explain their business over and over again to the new consultants.
absolutely. Yeah,
And then if I look at me, if there's a customer who says, I want to book you for 10 hours a month, I said, moi. But if you can do it via the platform, and I know that there will be 10 other customers who want 10 hours of me, then suddenly it's a business model.
yeah, yeah,
So that makes it a lot more flexible for us as well. So that's really, I really see the win-win here. But well,
yeah.
that's why we're having this conversation. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's still, I mean, it's still early days for us. We've got at Abstrata, we've got one or two clients that we work with where we do the kind of review phase where an organization will come to us and say, look, we've got really no idea where we're at, what we need to do. We know that we've got FinOps and SaaS management we need to pay attention to. Come in, review, and help us build a target operating model. So we're doing that for one or two organizations, but our gambit after that is, well, once we've done that bit for you, we're going to suggest that you use our platform, you take a fractional ITAM manager, and then as and when you need different services, because let's face it, if you try and build out a managed service now, you could do that, but the following year, it could well be different if a publisher changes their terms and conditions, and then all of a sudden you've got the next new Java problem. The client's
yeah,
got to be able to move with that. So that's where that's where we're at now. But I think it's probably going to take us another 6 to 12 months before we start to get the volume really kicking off. We've got some inbound stuff coming in through all the LinkedIn work that we're doing, so that's really good to
yeah,
see. But the thing that excites me is this fractional ITAM manager, people like you, and I'm glad you like having multiple projects because I think what could happen towards the beginning is people like you will be in such high demand to do that fractional role that you could end up with like 10, 20 clients wanting Gerben. And as much as you like multitasking and having lots of projects, that would probably send you around. Well, that and your 4 children as well. Did you say five? I think you
yeah.
said.
Four, and then a daughter of friends is
There
also
you
living with us, so it's
there
five.
you go then. Yeah, big family plus 10 or 20 fractional roles. That could send you crazy. But yeah, well, it'll be a nice problem to have when it happens.
Exactly, that's a luxury problem, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Now, one thing that when we first met a few months ago, one thing that really interests me, because I have to admit, I feel I have a view on AI and how it is going to. I love the idea of AI, but I'm also super frightened of it. And I know that we need to apply governance to it. But I look at organizations and how and where they're changing. I look at ITAM and FinOps and how it's going to affect that and our market, and there's probably lots of different ways it's going to affect it. But I know when I was speaking with you that you'd really spent quite a bit of time looking at AI, hadn't you? I don't know how you'd gotten into it. Can you kind of give us a bit of background how you got into the AI space
Yeah,
and ITAM?
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the fun thing is that AI and ITAM are quite alike issues, sit in between the business and the technology again, because that's the
Okay.
place where I love to be.
Yeah.
Because there's like a business problem, there are several AI solutions, and how to find out which one fits best. Currently, it's vice versa, right? We've got an AI solution. Let's
Yeah.
find a problem.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's
Yes,
not
yes,
how we
very
should
much
be
so.
doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's the reason why I dived into it and read a lot about it, did some training courses and are helping some customers to think about how should we do it, and then not pushing the buttons, but thinking about governance. Because what we see everywhere is there's a shiny new algorithm and a nice application and everything. But if we then think about what does that mean from an ethics perspective,
Yeah.
there's nothing, literally nothing. Yeah, there's some window washing from the big five, from the Microsoft of this world saying we need to do such things, but
Yeah.
the general customer doesn't think twice about the ethics of things and about what does it do for the employment market of my kids if
Yeah.
we embrace AI the wrong way. And
Yeah.
what can we do? So I really love that topic and working quite hard to build something for that as well in a documentation space. Um,
Be good to know a little bit more. We should spend some more time outside of this video looking at what you're doing and maybe we should run a whole video on AI and ITAM potentially. I think it'd be good
yeah,
to kind of get your thoughts on it. Do you know one thing? I just changed, not changing the subject slightly, but I was drinking my coffee this morning and I was just listening to the radio and the news. And in the UK, there's a referee, well-known referee in the Premier League, and he's been caught on video supposedly swearing about a Premier League manager, Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool, ex-Liverpool manager. Something that really grabbed hold of me while I was listening to that was because it was just so blasé. Was Yeah, so this referee's been saying some derogatory stuff about Jurgen Klopp. No one's confirmed yet whether it's true or whether it's, AI generated. And I just
yeah,
thought, oh my God, we are here already, aren't we? Where, we're watching videos and we don't know if it's actually someone. And that bit I mentioned earlier on scares the living daylight. That's really scary stuff, isn't it?
yeah. And we see the same thing if you look at the footage from Valencia in Spain, right? With the floods,
Yeah,
there's footage of cars standing on top of each other in the street,
yeah,
and people say, "Well, this is AI. This can be real," and it is just people suffering there.
yeah.
So
That
that's
that
that's
is
one of the fears indeed about what does it do with our reality.
yeah, yeah,
That's the one of the biggest fears I have. Do we still see reality? Do we still want to connect to people interpersonally? So, looking at home, my kids are afraid to pick up the phone and call someone because they are just not used to it. And I see that all around me that the younger people don't
yeah,
like calling people and talking to people. And I think that's the basics that we thrive on, right? In
yeah,
connecting to people and share ideas and share thoughts and have a laugh, have a beer. And that's just
yeah.
going away. And that frightens me.
Do you know that's an interesting one because I know so often I go to call my daughter. I know we're getting off topic here. People will be watching this thing. I thought it was about ITAM. These two guys are talking about AI. You're right though, to your point about my if I call my daughter, she won't answer, but she'll immediately text back and say, "Dad, what do you want? What you?" It's kind of like, why would you use a phone for what it was meant for, like 20 years ago? Why,
Exactly.
why would you want to speak to me? Just text me, just put me something, just hit me up on Insta or whatever. One
Yeah.
thing, actually, on while we're on the AI piece, one thing that I was reading a few months ago, and it kind of got me thinking was the whole. You've got lots of organizations, software organizations that have built their software over the last 5, 10, 15 years. Cloud has facilitated that rapid growth because it's just so easier and cheaper to build software. And even AI, to some degree, has allowed coders to rapidly build foundations before they then go on and put, the front end stuff on. But this article was talking about the fact that AI now, and this may well sit in ITAM, you could, if you've got a clean database, then there's no reason why you can't hook that AI up to read the database and potentially, and it doesn't matter whether it's in the ITAM sector or somewhere else, you're going to have a lot of SaaS organizations that have spent money on building their software. AI is now coming along, and you can literally potentially build the same product for half the price because you're using AI and a basic set of databases. And so it's going to force the prices down on SaaS software in general over the next 2 or 3 years. And that was, for me, I was really curious about that. I was kind of like, that's a big macro statement to say about our space.
Yeah, where currently you see it vice versa, right? If there's an AI stamp on it, we can price it up.
Oh, yeah,
And even
yeah,
if you buy toothpaste, if there's an AI stamp, it's €1 more expensive. So that's really
yeah.
funny. But what I do see, getting back on topic, is indeed that we like to manage assets. And AI is an asset, right? Which algorithms are we using? Which apps are we using? It's kind of comparable with the S-bomb, right? The bill of material on the software basics.
Yeah,
So I think we, as some managers, item managers, can extend our scope in also managing the AI algorithms that we use, safeguarding their life cycles, making sure that whenever there's a vulnerability, that we know what we're using. And today, that's not really on the radar of item managers that this can be
that's
an
true.
important thing, but also
Yeah,
something to place you better on the map within your company if you're also hooking on to the AI part, but then adding value and not only saying, I'm using AI because I have
yeah,
ChatGPT.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a fascinating one. I've kind of, we're building our product right now, and the first thing we said to ourselves was, we're not going to just try and put an AI feature or function into the platform right now, because we don't want to put square peg round hole. We want to, our business model is this, and we know that right now we can build that and it doesn't need AI. But for us, once the basic product goes live, the next version, it's now a question of, okay, well, do we need to lean into where the customer's going from an AI perspective and look at how we might need to adapt our platform? Or do we need to look at our actual platform itself and look at where potentially areas of AI could enhance it? And I know one area definitely is where we have at the moment, the vetting process is like five
Yep.
layers. There's quite a few tests to go through. Potentially, I think AI at the front end, where we do some of the vetting, it could probably take about 70% of that vetting process,
Yeah,
and help us speed that element up, I think. But yeah, we'll have to look at that. I mean, first things first, let's get the product live, let's get the business model working and get people on board before we
exactly.
start getting AI in. I'm just looking at the time. It's literally half an hour's gone past already. I knew this would happen with you just because you've got such a broad set of knowledge, and you've also got that AI knowledge base in your kit bag. I think what we're going to have to do, if you're okay with it, is we'll do another session purely on AI and ITAM,
Yeah,
because I think getting the Abstrato Community Hub listeners, newsletter readers to dial into Gerben a little bit more and your background in AI, I think could be really interesting. And I know we've already had quite a few um, uh, people come to us and talk about AI and say, well, we're interested to know a little bit more about this. So you definitely have a captive and wide audience from an Abstrato perspective, if you're happy to do that.
absolutely, absolutely. I love talking about this, and it's a great opportunity and also a threat. So let's give it the right attention.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Well, look, the half an hour's up. We'll end the video here now. Really appreciate your time, Gerben. We could have talked for another 15, 20 minutes on this subject.
Probably.
And yeah, I think we should also maybe run another video on the whole cheese and waffles thing that you talked about from where you
But then
come
I
from in
suggest we
Holland.
do it in person, then I can take some.
That's probably a good idea. That is a good idea, actually. Yeah, because we're not a million miles away from each
Exactly.
other, are we? Euro tunnel. I'm definitely up for cheese and waffles. Definitely
Let's
up for
keep that
that.
one in mind, indeed.
Yeah.